On the night I won my very first Best Actress award, I publicly announced my relationship with Joel Chan in the most high-profile way possible, only for him to slap me in the face with humiliation. Jasmine? Don't really remember her. Was she the one with the little red mole somewhere? The entire internet turned it into a meme, mocking me as some cheap gold digger desperate to marry into a wealthy family. What I didn't know was that on the very same day as the award ceremony, another man with the surname Chan stared silently at the screen for a very long time. His secretary was stunned. President Chan. You actually stan celebrities too? Sitting in his wheelchair, he answered calmly. No, I only follow Jasmine. Chapter 1. A red mole? Where exactly is it? Come on. Spill the details. The moment I opened my phone, the web page flooded with sarcastic, passive-aggressive comments. The post where I announced my relationship last night had completely blown up. Not because of me, but because the man I announced it with was Joel. Joel was the spoiled heir of a powerful, wealthy family. He was notorious for his arrogant, reckless behavior, and with that dangerously handsome bad boy face of his, he had long become a public obsession. As expected, the moment I tapped on the #1 trending video, I saw Joel's impatient expression. Can you people stop filming me already? There are tons of actresses dying to throw themselves at me. Wait. But near the end, he suddenly paused. His tone lifted slightly as one corner of his lips curled upward. Jasmine, is she the one with the red mole? Joel casually slid his hand toward his waist, the gesture deliberately suggestive. I shut off the video immediately. My head buzzed violently, as if someone had slapped me hard across the face from miles away. Opening WeChat, I saw unread messages sitting in the pinned chat at the top. The wording was exactly like the arrogant rich brat he'd always been. Jasmine, if you piss me off, I'll make sure you suffer too. Now do you understand what you did wrong? Chapter 2. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to resist the urge to smash my phone to pieces. I called him, blocked again. That was Joel, a walking example of rich boy temper tantrums. When he was happy, he'd promise you the moon and stars, but the moment you upset him, he'd make you pay for it 100-fold. Throughout the entire year we'd been together, every argument ended like this. This time, because he was angry, the relationship announcement we had agreed on beforehand turned into a one-woman show. He humiliated me, disgusted me, and more than anything, he wanted me to lower my head and apologize obediently. After thinking for a moment, I called my assistant. Jasmine, she hesitated. Are you okay? I'm fine. Don't worry about me. I paused before continuing. But for tonight's charity gala, I'll probably need you to prepare another dress for me. Chapter 3. Tonight's charity gala was hosted personally by a top luxury brand. Every guest attending was someone influential and powerful. Thanks to Joel, the newly crowned Best Actress whose award night instantly turned into a scandal had become the center of attention the moment I stepped into the ballroom. But after their eyes lingered on me for a moment, every guest revealed the same shocked expression. They were staring at the daring gown I was wearing. My entire smooth back was exposed, while the fabric barely covered the curve of my waist, and the draping design revealed, perfectly, the tiny red mole nestled in the hollow of my lower back. The moment I stopped to pick up a glass of wine, a furious figure stormed toward me. Joel grabbed my arm and dragged me aside, his expression dark. Jasmine, I don't remember approving an outfit like this. He was furious. That dress is basically a piece of trash fabric. Did I spoil you too much or something? I tried pulling my hand away. Young Master Chan, maybe you should calm down first and think carefully about what exactly we are. Joel Chan gritted his teeth. What the hell is that supposed to mean? The smile faded from my face. Yesterday was the first award I've ever won, yet all you cared about was getting back at me by saying those deliberately suggestive things. Do you know how many people online are editing fake pictures and spreading sexual rumors about me now? Joel froze. So this was your way of forcing me to apologize? I shot back. That mole was never anywhere intimate to begin with. There was never anything shameful about it. You were the one who deliberately made it sound dirty and turned it into public entertainment. So tell me, what exactly did I do wrong? He stood there stunned. Let's break up. I let out a soft laugh and stepped backward. Oh right. I almost forgot. We were never officially dating. Then let me phrase it another way. Young Master Chan, Your temper sucks. And honestly, you're not that great in other ways either. I'm tired of you. I want someone new. Bye. Chapter 4. I looked at Joel's completely stunned expression and turned around as coolly as I could. But the second I turned my back to him, my face instantly twisted into misery. The fierce confidence I'd just shown vanished on the spot. Why the hell isn't there any heating here? Ugh. Seriously. I was already upset enough. And now I felt even worse. Hunched over, I shivered so hard my teeth almost chattered. I rubbed my reddened eyes and sniffled quietly. Damn it all. If it weren't for trying to save face in front of Joel, who would dress like this? For some reason, I suddenly felt like someone was watching me. I looked up. By the corridor window sat a man in a wheelchair. I had no idea how long he'd been there. My heart skipped. Gathering my courage, I looked over properly. It was Joel Chan's uncle, Sebastian Chan. The man who had risen above everyone else in the Chan family's vicious power struggles now sat in the half-lit shadows, elegant and distant, like some untouchable god. Sebastian's black clothing and short dark hair made his features appear even colder, and around his wrist was wrapped a string of agarwood prayer beads. I'd heard that after becoming the head of the Chan family, countless elites and socialites had tried desperately to curry favor with him. Yet among all the gifts he received, he treasured only this one bracelet. I had always been a little afraid of Sebastian and never dared talk to him much. But now that we'd unexpectedly run into each other, I couldn't exactly pretend not to see him, right? While I was still hesitating, Sebastian shifted slightly. This time, the light fully illuminated him. His sharp, sculpted features softened faintly beneath the glow. And before I could figure out what to say, Sebastian spoke first. Long time no see, little girl. He paused before adding calmly. Who bullied you this badly? Why are you crying like that? Chapter 5. After Sebastian went overseas years ago, we never saw each other again. The Sebastian I remembered had once been tall, proud, and untouchable. Now, he was sitting in a wheelchair. What exactly had happened to him all these years? I was lost in thought when he suddenly spoke again. What are you staring at? I jumped and hurriedly looked away, instantly turning meek. Nothing. I wasn't looking at anything. Sebastian chuckled softly. So you dare look but don't dare admit it? Jasmine, weren't you acting pretty fearless just now? Seriously, if he already noticed, why even ask me? I softened my tone and forced myself to greet him properly. Long time no see. I paused. How exactly was I supposed to address him now? Back when I was younger and clueless, I'd casually called him Uncle Sebastian or Brother Seabass whenever I felt like it. But things were different now. Sebastian Chan was the head of the Chan family, a man I absolutely could not afford to offend. I needed to keep him happy. President Chan? I cautiously tried out what I thought was the safest title. Sebastian Chan's expression remained indifferent as his gaze lowered toward the agarwood beads around his wrist. What did you just call me? I couldn't read his emotions, but for a split second, the atmosphere suddenly felt colder. Why did it feel like he wanted to curse me out? Then I realized, President Chan really did sound stiff, awkward, and weirdly old-fashioned. That was my mistake. After carefully choosing my words again, I spoke once more. Long time no see. Seabass. This time, the man before me finally seemed satisfied. At last. He said nothing more. I secretly wiped the sweat off my palms in relief. The men in the Chan family, young or old, every single one of them was either too talkative or way too scheming. Not one of them was easy to deal with. I needed to escape. It's getting late today. Maybe we can talk another time. But before I could finish speaking, Sebastian slowly opened his hand. Resting in his palm was a rhinestone tassel earring. My earring? Instinctively, I touched my ear. Sure enough, one side was empty. That earring was outrageously expensive. My manager had practically begged on her knees just to borrow it for me. I had no choice but to stop walking away. Sebastian spoke calmly. You dropped it. I followed you over just to return this. I reached out, about to thank him and take the earring back. But unexpectedly, Sebastian suddenly closed his hand again. He curled his fingers around the earring once more. His palm was warm and dry as he lightly held my freezing, stiff fingers. Yesterday, when you won the Yuchin Award, I had something important to deal with and couldn't make it there in time. But I still wanted to congratulate you in person. Sebastian lifted his eyes to look at me, and in those dark eyes was unmistakable sincerity. You worked hard, little girl. I froze slightly as I looked at his hand. Yesterday, when I stood on stage accepting my award, I held flowers in one hand and the speech I had spent so long preparing in the other, seriously talking about all the effort and sacrifice I'd poured into my career. But because of Joel, the brightest day of my life had turned into a joke. People made memes out of me. They obsessed over my so-called rise to the top. It was as though everyone had forgotten that yesterday was the very first time I had ever won an award. But Sebastian remembered. I sniffled again. Earlier, it really had been because of the cold. But now, why did I suddenly feel like crying for real? Chapter 6. After the banquet ended, I sat in the car on the way home when my assistant finally couldn't hold back anymore. Jasmine, this suit. She glanced carefully at the jacket draped over my shoulders. Does it belong to young Master Chan? You two made up? My gaze dropped to my arms. It was Sebastian's coat. Earlier, when he noticed how miserable I looked from the cold, he lent it to me. Seeing him again had stirred up memories I hadn't thought about in years. Back when we all lived in the same residential compound. Joel, his gang of reckless rich kid friends, and I spent every day running wild together. At that time, my family hadn't fallen apart yet. Everyone teased us for being childhood sweethearts and loved trying to matchmake us. After all, we had grown up living across the hall from each other, then later became classmates. In high school, Joel confessed to me and started chasing after me seriously. Somehow, he even got his hands on a flashy motorcycle with a side compartment and insisted on taking me to the movies on it. But the second we climbed on, Sebastian caught us red-handed. At the time, Sebastian had just returned from somewhere outside. The moment he saw me wrapping my arms around Joel's waist, he seemed to understand everything immediately. Narrowing his eyes slightly, he tilted his chin toward Joel. Joel, look at you getting bold. Dating in high school now? Every kid in the compound was terrified of Sebastian. Ever since we were little, he had always been the legendary someone else's perfect child, the most outstanding person among our entire generation. He seemed flawless in every possible way, like the moon hanging high in the sky, distant and untouchable, cold yet dazzling. At least, that was what I used to think. The moment Sebastian spoke, Joel nearly jumped out of his skin. He abandoned the motorcycle immediately and stood obediently to the side, still wearing his helmet. He stammered nervously. Uncle Sebastian, I swear I wouldn't dare. It's not what you think. Sebastian's gaze landed on my bare head. The only helmet had been worn by Joel himself. Sebastian frowned faintly. Then he walked straight toward me and lowered his head slightly. His shirt carried the clean scent of laundry detergent, and it drifted into my nose. So you're done studying? Not planning to go to college anymore? He asked suddenly. I like him. Avoiding Sebastian's gaze, I turned to look at Joel instead. Joel clearly hadn't expected me to say something like that. He looked so shocked and delighted that he practically seemed ready to ascend into the heavens on the spot. Meanwhile, my own expression remained completely blank. Like him? Sebastian repeated the words slowly, almost as if tasting them. Then he let out a cold laugh. You're still so young. What do you even know about liking someone? I rose onto my tiptoes and leaned close to his ear, in a voice only the two of us could hear. I whispered, if I don't like him, then who should I like? You? Sebastian froze. What did you say? What did you say? A suddenly shrill voice yanked me out of my memories. My assistant had just hung up the phone and was fumbling frantically with her screen. After staring at it for a few seconds, she let out a dramatic wail and tossed her phone aside. It's over. We're completely screwed. What's over? I asked. That dress you changed into tonight? Totally pointless. You got photographed again. I went pale. Photographed doing what? I'd been eating diet meals every single day and doing Pilates for 6 straight months. If they caught a bad angle of my stomach again, I was seriously done for. Chapter 7. My assistant only told me to hurry up and check the internet myself. The moment I unlocked my phone, I discovered that Joel had unfollowed me. Typical young Master Chan behavior, just like how he'd claimed to like me since high school. Yet even after I agreed to date him, he never once stopped surrounding himself with different women. From the very start of our relationship, he had already set a curfew for me. Joel said that unless I was filming, I wasn't allowed home later than 9 at night. And that wasn't all. He had endless rules for me. No kissing scenes. No physical contact with male actors. Jasmine, what resources can't I get for you? You should spend more time with me instead. What? Is filming more important to you than I am? He was always demanding things from me, controlling this and that. Yet he rarely cared about what mattered to me. I argued with him. I told him that romance wasn't the entirety of life. I had my own career, and even without his interference, I could still succeed perfectly well. I also needed my own social life and personal space. By the end of the fight, Joel stormed out and slammed the door. Jasmine, so you're refusing to give in now? Fine, I've got plenty of ways to deal with you. I'll make sure you realize you can't survive without me. And this time, his chosen way of dealing with me was publicly abandoning me on the very day I won my award and refusing to admit he was my boyfriend. This time, I wasn't going to coax him anymore. Thinking of that, I immediately unfollowed Joel back. The very next second, he sent me a question mark in my DMs. What's going on with the trending topic? You won't explain yourself. And now you unfollow me too? Feeling guilty? Jasmine, did you seriously cheat on me? I replied with a simple, stop barking. Then I blocked him immediately. But what the hell did he mean by that? Completely confused, I clicked into the trending topic. And after seeing the absolutely ridiculous #1 headline, I fell into silence. Right beneath the giant red-hot label were the words, #wealthy business tycoon becomes mistress for love #. I stared at the screen, covered in question marks. Chapter 8. In the first photo, Sebastian sat in his wheelchair, his palm gently curled around my hand. In the second, I stood beside him wrapped in his suit jacket. My eyes were red and swollen, obviously from crying. No wonder Joel accused me of cheating on him. The comment section was absolute chaos. But this time, nobody cared about my mole anymore. Everyone was focused on Sebastian instead. When Jasmine announced her relationship before, didn't she only mention Mr. Chan? She never actually said which Mr. Chan, right? Oh my god, wait. What if it wasn't Joel Chan but Sebastian Chan? Isn't that Joel's uncle? Come on. Sebastian has basically zero scandals and keeps an insanely low profile. There's no way he'd become the other man. I kept scrolling through the comments. Some of Joel's fans had mixed into the discussion too, though their voices were painfully weak compared to everyone else's. A homewrecker is still a homewrecker, even if he's a man. Sebastian may have lost his legs, but young Master Chan lost love. Meanwhile, even more netizens were defending Sebastian. Yesterday, I was the center of a scandal. Today, people were suddenly spreading rumors that Sebastian returned to the country for Jasmine and calling me President Chan's goddess. Honestly, it almost made me laugh. Sebastian's goddess? How could that possibly be me? Chapter 9. Early the next morning, a black car stopped downstairs outside my apartment. I originally planned to walk the other way, but Sebastian rolled down the window, glanced at me lazily, and crooked a finger. Goddess, come chat with me. I stopped in my tracks. Wow, was he mocking me right now? Chapter 10. I got into his car. His secretary kept secretly studying me through the rearview mirror. The man beside me suddenly gave an impatient cough. The secretary nearly jumped out of his skin and quickly looked away. So, did you need something from me? Since Sebastian remained silent, I spoke first. Those deep eyes settled quietly on my face. I remember you used to love ballet. He said, when did you start acting? Because I needed money. I answered honestly. The year my father got into trouble, we sold our house to pay off debts, and my mother and I moved into a cramped alleyway apartment. My mother, who had never lifted a finger around the house before, started working multiple part-time jobs every day. With our situation, there was no way we could continue paying for expensive ballet lessons. In front of my mother, I personally cut apart my ballet shoes with scissors. I told her dancing was boring anyway, that I didn't want to learn anymore. My mother cried for a very, very long time, but now my mom and I are doing well. I continued softly. Acting lets me earn good money. It's given me the chance to do a lot of things. Sebastian responded with a quiet mem. Leaning back against the seat, he folded his hands together. It sounds like acting is very important to you. What kind of question was that? Acting literally paid my bills. Of course it was important. While I was still confused, he suddenly lifted his gaze to me. Joel has already started pulling strings. He seems determined to blacklist you in his own way. I froze. Has he completely lost his mind? I knew Joel was crazy, but I had never imagined he would go this far. He knew perfectly well that my career was my weak spot. That was exactly why he chose this method, to hurt me with absolute precision. But what was I supposed to do now? Go crawling back to Joel and make up with him? Just imagining it felt ridiculous. Sebastian seemed to see straight through my thoughts. Jasmine, right now, you have two choices. The fingers of the hand wrapped in agarwood prayer beads tapped lightly against his leg. His deep, cold voice sounded calm and unhurried. First, immediately announce your retirement from the entertainment industry. I clenched my teeth. Impossible. Then you'll need to seriously consider the second option. Sebastian turned his head slightly. What option? I blurted out. The second one, perfectly composed in his immaculate suit. His gaze lingered openly on my lips. Marry me. Chapter 11. Jasmine, considering your current situation, this is the best option for you. If you marry me, all the public backlash and every problem involving Joel will become my responsibility to handle. I suggest you read the situation carefully and make your decision sooner rather than later. He sat there calmly, practically wearing the words across his face. I'm your safest backup plan. Hurry up and use me. But I was still too stunned to fully process any of this. What about you? I asked. What do you want to gain from this? Even a 3-year-old knew there was no such thing as a free lunch. Sebastian answered unhurriedly. Since returning to the country, the group has been moving into several new industries. In public, I need a wife who is young, beautiful, and well-known. You fit perfectly. The cost of getting along with each other is relatively low. If we both agree to this arrangement willingly, it will maximize benefits for both sides. It's good for you, and good for me. It felt like Sebastian had just proposed to me, and yet somehow, it also felt like I was negotiating a business contract with him. Not sure yet. Better keep observing, perhaps noticing the thoughtful expression on my face. He paused briefly before continuing. Don't worry. After marriage, we'll only be husband and wife in the legal sense. I won't interfere with your career unless you run into trouble. And during the marriage, aside from remaining loyal to each other, you'll always have the right to end things whenever you want. I understood immediately. Wasn't this basically one of those cliché contract marriages from billionaire romance novels? Sebastian laid out the pros and cons of this marriage so clearly and logically that I honestly couldn't think of a reason to refuse. Before I could say anything, Sebastian opened his palm. Resting there was a small dark blue ring box. He opened it slowly, revealing a breathtaking diamond ring inside. I've already chosen the size and style. Now I'm only waiting for you to say yes. Chapter 12. The truth was, what happened between Sebastian and me all those years ago had always remained buried deep in my heart. For countless nights, I had lost sleep over it, tossing and turning endlessly. But at this very moment, staring at the massive diamond ring in front of me, along with the ridiculously tempting conditions Sebastian was offering, I was undeniably tempted. Besides, it was only a contract marriage. After getting married, we would simply take what we each needed from the arrangement. Slowly, I extended my hand. Under Sebastian's steady gaze, I nodded. Then congratulations in advance, you scheming businessman, for marrying such an adorable wife. Chapter 13. News of my marriage to Sebastian spread quickly. The wedding was held at Sebastian's private estate in the capital. Lavish, extravagant, painfully high profile. Right before we were about to walk out, my best friend leaned closer and whispered excitedly. Jasmine, tell me honestly, who exactly was that guy you confessed to when you were younger? I pretended not to understand. I have no idea what you're talking about. But she saw right through me. Oh, stop acting innocent. Back then, you went to deliver a love letter and kept saying you were scared he'd think you were too young. Then the very next day, you came to school with red eyes and claimed you didn't like him anymore. She lowered her voice dramatically. The person you liked was actually Joel's uncle, Sebastian, wasn't it? You better not mention this in front of Sebastian. I couldn't keep pretending anymore. Because she was right. Back then, during that age when girls first begin to understand love, I really had secretly liked Sebastian. After all, he was dazzling, outstanding, the kind of person who attracted everyone's attention just by standing there. And now, Sebastian was standing beside me. It felt as though I were reaching across my entire youth just to hold onto his arm. Dressed in a perfectly tailored dark gray suit, he supported himself with a cane in one hand. My gaze drifted downward toward his legs. Your legs are okay? Sebastian glanced at me lightly. Don't worry about it. Any groom who wants to be pushed out by his bride during the wedding can volunteer himself. I burst out laughing before I could stop myself. At the same time, I instinctively slowed my pace, wanting to walk beside him instead of leaving him behind. Sebastian's lips curved faintly upward, but just before we reached the stairs, he suddenly seemed tense. Wait, Sebastian called out sharply and abruptly pulled me into his arms. Under the curious gazes of countless guests, I was completely enveloped in his warm embrace. I didn't understand the sudden movement. Then, in the next second, the massive floral displays on both sides of the staircase crashed violently to the ground with a deafening roar. My heart nearly stopped. If I had kept walking quickly like before, I probably would have been crushed underneath them. And if I really had ended up trapped there in this ridiculously heavy wedding dress, I would have looked absolutely pathetic. Who knew what kind of internet meme I would have become this time? But Sebastian had stopped me, almost as if he could predict the future. Ever since he reappeared in my life, it felt like whenever he was around, every danger somehow turned into safety. Every problem became solvable. Could Sebastian actually be my lucky charm? Chapter 14. Overnight. All the scandals and gossips surrounding Joel and me seemed to vanish from the internet completely. Every trending topic disappeared. Every article was wiped clean. For a moment, I almost thought I had imagined the entire thing. As for me, aside from endless headlines celebrating my Best Actress win, there wasn't a single negative story left online. Joel never succeeded in blacklisting me either. On the contrary, I even landed a new drama role. Sebastian had fulfilled every promise he made. After reading scripts all day, I curled up on the couch, half asleep. Then I heard the faint sound of the front door opening. Drowsily, I looked over. Sebastian was finally home. On our wedding night, something urgent had happened at the company, forcing him to leave immediately. And once he left, he stayed gone for several days. Today was the first time we'd seen each other again. After the secretary left, Sebastian walked over beside the sofa. The situation at the factory wasn't good. Sorry, I should have stayed with you. Honestly, he had already explained everything the day he rushed away, and I understood completely. But Sebastian still chose to explain it again in person. Did you receive all the flowers? Do you like them? Even while he was away, he had someone deliver fresh flowers to me every single day. I turned to look at the flowers filling almost half the living room. Even when I dated Joel, despite how often he claimed to love me, he had never once given me flowers. But how did Sebastian know I liked them? I had never told anyone before. Helplessly, I sighed. I do like them, but you've only been gone for 3 days. We're already running out of places to put them. And also, this feels way too expensive. Under the warm yellow light, Sebastian lowered his eyes slightly and answered calmly. I grew these flowers myself, and they were transported here on my private plane, so no public resources were wasted. He paused briefly. Besides, you just said you liked them, so how is it a waste? I froze. For a moment, I genuinely didn't know how to argue back. Wasn't this supposed to be a contract marriage? Why was this man acting so emotionally invested already? Chapter 15. Sebastian quickly noticed the new script in my hands. When do you start filming? Tomorrow morning. I recalled what my manager had told me earlier. Now that you're married to Sebastian, I really think you should have him visit you on set more often. President Chan is an extremely influential figure in the industry. As long as people believe your relationship is solid, sooner or later nobody will dare bring up those rumors about Joel anymore. So I decided to ask him directly. Do you want to come stay with me for a few days? I heard there's a huge scenic area nearby. Sebastian frowned slightly and rejected the idea immediately. No, I still have work to handle. I could only nod. Oh, he really was busy. If he genuinely couldn't spare the time, then fine. And yet later on, at the hotel where our production team was staying, I still spotted a very familiar figure. Sebastian stood at the entrance looking travel-worn from the journey. The moment I opened the door, the exhaustion in his eyes seemed to brighten faintly. I thought you said you weren't coming. I blinked. Sebastian's lips curved upward slightly. Once a promise is made, no distance is too far. This is the first time you've ever asked me to accompany you to work. Of course I came. Chapter 16. Sebastian's arrival truly had an extraordinary effect. During the day, he accompanied me while I filmed, and somehow, the entire production crew became noticeably tense because of him. Sebastian rarely smiled to begin with, and his expression was usually cold and unreadable. Everyone on set assumed he was unhappy about something and became so nervous they barely dared breathe too loudly. After all, this was a terrifyingly powerful man. Nobody wanted to risk offending him. Eventually, even the director couldn't handle the pressure anymore. He secretly pulled me aside. You can see the atmosphere on set these past few days too. Maybe Mr. Chan should head back first? I looked toward Sebastian. Even though it was winter, there was a sunshade set up behind his wheelchair. Not only that, the table in front of him was piled with hand warmers, hot water bottles, and all kinds of snacks. Anyone who didn't know better would think Sebastian was on vacation instead of visiting a filming set. This level of treatment, he looked like the emperor of the entire production crew. Meanwhile, Sebastian seemed completely unaware of everyone's nervousness. He focused entirely on the tablet in front of him, apparently handling work. Suddenly, he lifted a hand, removed one of his Bluetooth earbuds, and looked toward me, across the crowded set. Our eyes met, and in that instant, everything around us seemed to fall silent. Those calm, restrained eyes rested on me for a long time. I quickly turned away, trying to hide the strange panic rising inside my chest. Chapter 17. That night, I collapsed onto the couch while practicing my lines. Tomorrow's scene was especially important. It was the female lead's first inner monologue after being reborn. I immersed myself in the character, staring at Sebastian's profile as I rehearsed the scene over and over again. But no matter how many times I tried, I still couldn't achieve the feeling I wanted. Frustrated, I tossed the script aside. Noticing my struggle, Sebastian bent down and picked up the script from the floor. Flipping through it casually, he asked, "Rebirth?" I wasn't sure which page he had stopped on, or why he suddenly seemed interested in my script. I nodded. Yeah, in this drama, the heroine loved her senior in her previous life. After being reborn, she travels back to the past and keeps trying to save him. I think she's brave, but I'm worried I can't properly portray that bravery. Sebastian shook his head gently, because she never had the chance to say it out loud. Her love was never truly seen by anyone. She can't even tell whether it's worthy of being shown. He paused, fingers resting against the script. Her love is timid. It's restrained, but bravery is the one thing it isn't. His interpretation was surprisingly unique, and instantly, I became interested. Sitting up straighter, I rested my chin on my hand and asked, "Sebastian, then if you were the heroine, what would you do?" He looked at me. Those eyes that always appeared indifferent toward everyone else now seemed to contain an entire burning lake. If there truly were a chance to return to the past, I wouldn't care whether she loved me or not. I would only do everything in my power to hold on to her until the moment I no longer could. Even if it cost me life after life, I'd still be willing. I stared at him silently. Sebastian sounded as though he understood those feelings far too deeply. As if, at some point in the past, he had once desperately tried to hold on to someone too. Chapter 18. During my teenage years, Sebastian had been my first love. That was why every soft little sea bass I called him carried hidden feelings of my own. I always thought that if I could become at least a little different from other girls, maybe he would remember me. The day I finally gathered the courage to confess, Joel had coincidentally invited me to study together. Halfway through, I sneaked away with my love letter hidden in my arms. Sebastian's bedroom door was slightly open. I pushed it open quietly, tiptoeing inside, planning to leave the letter behind and escape immediately afterward. But then my attention was caught by a large metal box sitting wide open on the desk. Inside were carefully preserved little trinkets that clearly belonged to a young girl. A hairpin, a ballet shoe, and even a diary. The wind from outside flipped the diary pages open, revealing neat, elegant handwriting. Sebastian didn't seem like the kind of man who would care about sentimental things like this. The ballet shoe had already faded slightly with age, yet he had preserved it perfectly, spotless and immaculate. My mind went completely blank. Panicking, I fled from his room almost immediately. Why did Sebastian have such personal belongings in his room? Who did they belong to? Especially something as private as a diary. Who would willingly give their diary to another person? That could only mean they were extremely close. Or, Sebastian had secretly taken it himself. And if it was the second possibility? I had already been nervous enough before entering the room. After seeing those things, my thoughts became complete chaos. I didn't dare ask Sebastian about any of it. Maybe he would question me first, asking why I had sneaked into his room, and I wouldn't be able to explain myself at all. After crying until my eyes turned red, I tore apart the love letter filled with all my teenage feelings. That memory became a knot in my heart. Whether it was accepting the possibility that Sebastian liked someone else, or accepting the idea that he might have secretly taken another girl's diary, the flawless image of him in my mind had already cracked. Later, my secret crush quietly disappeared into the long years of youth, unfinished and unresolved. Yet for a very long time afterward, every time I heard Sebastian's name, I still couldn't help drifting into a daze. The Sebastian before me now seemed to overlap perfectly with the Sebastian from back then. Yes, the person he had desperately tried to hold on to. Hadn't I already seen traces of her inside that metal box years ago? Chapter 19. After filming wrapped, Sebastian Chan brought me back to the Chan family's main estate. Because of his position as the new family head, he would personally host this family banquet. And as the decorative trophy wife in our contract marriage, I finally had a role to play. Dressed elegantly, I attended with a flawless smile. Everyone respectfully addressed me as Mrs. Chan, praising Sebastian and me as the perfect match, talented, beautiful, and perfectly suited for each other. Sebastian seemed rather pleased by all the compliments. He stayed in a surprisingly good mood the entire day. Only Joel looked utterly miserable during the toast. His jaw clenched tightly, eyes bloodshot like a furious little beast on the verge of exploding. "Joel," Sebastian said calmly while holding my hand, his dark gaze sweeping lightly over Joel's tense face. "Call her auntie." Joel refused to speak, stubbornly standing there stiff-necked. Sebastian wasn't in any hurry either. He lazily rolled the prayer beads in his hand, the sharp line of his jaw calm and imposing. But the current Joel was no match for Sebastian at all. Everything the Chan family possessed today, their unshakable position in the business world, had been won back piece by Sebastian himself. Even Joel's father had willingly stepped down as family head and retired early because of him. Joel had no choice but to lower his head. Finally, through gritted teeth, he forced the words out. "Auntie." For some reason, I felt unbelievably satisfied inside. "Oh, such a good nephew," I answered sweetly. Then I reached out like a kind elder and patted Joel gently on the shoulder. Chapter 20. Halfway through the banquet, when I went to change dresses, I ran into Joel exactly as expected. A cigarette hung from his lips as he stood in the shadows, looking like he had been waiting for me for quite a while. "Auntie." He bit down especially hard on the title, laughing mockingly. "Jasmine, I seriously underestimated you. You dumped me and immediately latch onto my uncle? Impressive. Or maybe, you'd already climbed into his world long before we broke up." I frowned. His words were becoming increasingly unbearable. "Joel, before you, I genuinely never dated anyone, but I know what I need is a healthy relationship. The way you loved me was too suffocating. It crushed me until I couldn't breathe and made me stop looking forward to our future together. You created endless rules for me, tried turning me into some caged canary, and even attempted to blacklist me. But you never once gave me genuine understanding or respect." I took a deep breath. The biggest regret of my life is not ending things with you sooner. Let's stop here, Joel. Love without mutual respect and understanding was nothing more than an illusion. Beautiful on the surface, but destined to collapse eventually. I didn't want a love that always felt like it was about to shatter. Suddenly, Joel grabbed my wrist violently. His eyes reddened as he demanded desperately, What did you just say? Jasmine, say that again. When the hell did I ever say I was going to blacklist you? Chapter 21. Joel's words still echoed in my ears. Jasmine, you're seriously clueless. Don't end up helping someone count money after they've already sold you out. At this moment, Sebastian sat quietly across from me, faced with my anger. He appeared unbelievably calm. So, you found out? Those few words completely ignited my fury. Sebastian, I don't care if you treated this marriage like a business deal. At the very least, we should have been honest with each other. But you lied to me. What exactly are you trying to do? Sebastian's expression slowly turned colder. Jasmine, our marriage truly was something I carefully planned from the beginning. Since you asked, I have nothing to deny. The only thing I've ever schemed for, the only thing I've ever desperately tried to obtain, was you. He stopped for a moment, then suddenly laughed softly. You must think I'm despicable, but I was never some honorable man to begin with. A faintly bitter smile touched the corners of Sebastian's eyes. You think I couldn't tell? That you hated me? Chapter 22. Wait, I hated you? I stared at him in disbelief and repeated the words again. Thinking back carefully, the only time I had ever deliberately distanced myself from Sebastian was after discovering the metal box in his room. Back then, I had purposely forced myself to stay away from him, hoping distance would erase my feelings. The secret emotions buried deep within my teenage years suddenly felt dangerously close to being exposed. I turned my face away awkwardly. I never hated you. But back then, what exactly was that metal box in your room? And that diary, where did it come from? The moment I brought it up, Sebastian finally seemed to understand. A complicated darkness passed through his expression. So that's why you distanced yourself from me? After a long silence, I slowly nodded. He lowered his eyes, his voice carrying a trace of bitterness. Jasmine, if I told you those things all belong to you, would you believe me? The words exploded in my ears. And suddenly, the answer began forcing its way to the surface. Sebastian's eyes reddened slightly as his Adam's apple moved. Jasmine, for someone as despicable as me, it took 4 lifetimes of trying, just to finally stand before you like this. Chapter 23. I sat there holding the metal box for a very long time. By the time dawn slowly brightened the sky, I picked up the ballet shoe inside and carefully slipped my foot into it. As expected, Sebastian hadn't lied to me. The fit was perfect, as though it had been made exactly for me. Then I opened the diary. Written clearly on the very first page was the name, Jasmine. But the Jasmine inside this diary had lived an entirely different life from mine. Sebastian told me this was his 4th rebirth. At first, I only wanted to repay a debt. Jasmine, you once saved my life. In the beginning, I simply wanted to return the life I owed you. But later, it stopped being just gratitude. I wanted to treat you well. I wanted to stay by your side. As he spoke about these things, he never once mentioned how painful or difficult the journey had been for him. Sebastian also said that with every rebirth, he gradually forgot certain things. He was afraid that one day, he might forget me completely. So each time, he would deliberately leave something behind to remind himself. That was why everything inside the metal box came from me. My hairpin, my ballet shoes, even my diary. These things belonged to different versions of me. Yet all of them ultimately pointed toward the present me standing here now. For some reason, I suddenly remembered the moment at the wedding when Sebastian abruptly grabbed my hand. There was no such thing as a lucky charm. It was simply fate pushing him toward me again and again. When dawn finally broke, the secretary knocked softly on the bedroom door. Sir, it's time to leave. Before departing, Sebastian sat quietly in his wheelchair with his back facing me. For some reason, his silhouette looked unbearably lonely. Then he spoke softly. Jasmine, I don't have any secrets left from you anymore. At the beginning of this marriage, I truly did deceive you. And now that you know everything, if you still don't want to stay, I'll let you go. Final chapter. Hong Kong H Hospital. Half a month had passed since that day. Sebastian stood by the hospital window, staring into the distance, lost in thought. Beside him, the secretary cautiously asked, Judging from the situation, it seems Madam won't be coming today either. A trace of irritation flashed across Sebastian's face. Did I give you permission to speak? Then he turned to glance at the wheelchair nearby. Sebastian's legs had actually recovered long ago. After pretending to be disabled for so long, his muscles had practically started weakening for real. The only reason he continued using the wheelchair was because he figured that when the truth finally came out, at least he could still play the pity card. Who knew it still wouldn't work? Could it be that he shouldn't have tried retreating to advance? Or maybe that friend of hers had gotten the wrong information, and the person Jasmine wrote the love letter for back then wasn't him at all? Sebastian had originally believed victory was guaranteed. After confessing everything, he intentionally acted heartbroken and left for a while. Officially, he came here to recover and continue treatment for his legs. In reality, it was all part of a carefully planned emotional trap. Before leaving, he had even accidentally left H Hospital's business card on the coffee table. This time, he wanted to see her true feelings. With Jasmine's personality, she would definitely fall for it and come looking for him herself. But after waiting this long, why still hadn't she arrived? Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Sebastian immediately shot the secretary a meaningful look. Then he quickly lay back down on the bed. Unexpectedly, when the door opened, the person standing outside was a sharply dressed man. A hearing aid hung from the man's right ear, and his expression carried a mischievous bad boy charm. The moment Sebastian saw him, his face darkened completely. Casey, you seriously have too much free time. You're a grown man visiting me every single day. Isn't that disgusting? I'm waiting for my wife, not for you. Get lost. Don't come back tomorrow. He got off the bed impatiently and strode toward Casey. Casey grinned wickedly. Without saying a word, he raised both hands dramatically over his head and suddenly stepped aside. Sebastian froze. Behind Casey stood a tiny figure with a familiar face, wearing oversized sunglasses and holding a bouquet of flowers. Jasmine gritted her teeth. Sebastian, so you were pretending to be crippled? Didn't you say you had no more secrets from me, you giant liar? Sebastian coughed awkwardly. Without hesitation, he shoved Casey back out the door, while the secretary wisely disappeared as well. Finally, only the two of them remained in the room. Sebastian's heartbeat went completely out of control. Jasmine removed her sunglasses and pouted slightly. Meanwhile, his eyes traced her face again and again. She was beautiful. Her voice always sounded soft and sweet when she spoke. Her youthful features still made her look like a spoiled little girl. Yet there was an unconscious charm hidden in her expressions. Sebastian stared at her in a daze. These are for you. Jasmine shoved the bouquet into his arms. But that wasn't what he truly wanted to hear. After you left, Sebastian, my life didn't really seem that different. Jasmine sighed softly. But I missed you a lot. I was worried about you. That's why I came. A faint blush spread across her pale skin as if embarrassment had finally caught up to her. Sebastian, do you understand what I'm trying to say? I don't want a divorce. Seeing him standing there motionless, she had no choice but to continue patiently explaining herself. I mean, I like you too, MMPH. The bouquet fell to the floor, and the rest of her words disappeared between their lips. From this moment onward, they would forever live within each other's eyes, inside that burning lake of love that would never cool again. Extra chapter. Of all 4 rebirths, the one Sebastian least wanted to remember was the very first. That was the time when he was at his poorest, weakest, and most powerless. As an illegitimate son, Sebastian possessed extraordinary talent and intelligence, and because of that, Joel's father constantly suppressed him, doing everything possible to cut off his resources and keep him under control. The man feared Sebastian's sharp eyes. Even more than that, he feared Sebastian might threaten his own son's position within the Chan family. Step by step, Sebastian was deliberately turned into a crippled shadow of a person. At one point, he believed he would spend the rest of his life that way, until the day the Chan family traveled together, and happened to bring along the little girl next door. Before that, Sebastian and Jasmine had only met once. They were practically strangers. He only knew that she came from a wealthy family and studied dance. After the car plunged into the sea, Sebastian stopped struggling. He wanted to sink quietly beneath the water and disappear forever. But Jasmine held her breath and reached out with her thin little arms, stubbornly dragging him out of the sinking vehicle. He tried pulling her upward with him, but halfway to the surface, her strength finally gave out. and she sank completely into the deep ocean below. That day, despite using every ounce of his strength, Sebastian managed to grasp only a single hairpin. He became the sole survivor of the accident, but he could never understand why a little girl who barely knew him would risk her life to save him. Later, Sebastian inherited everything in the Chan family, yet he often found himself thinking back to that day. Then one night, after falling asleep, he unexpectedly opened his eyes to discover he had been reborn. Sebastian stared at the hairpin in his hand. He had returned to the age of 18. Everything could still be changed. At first, he thought heaven had granted him another chance to rewrite his fate. Using memories from his previous life, he began making the most advantageous decisions at every major turning point, climbing step by step until he stood at the very top of the Chan family. But he soon realized something important. Even though he had already lived through the past once, the world after rebirth still changed in unpredictable ways. Some accidents simply could not be avoided in advance. For example, Jasmine. He began paying attention to the little girl next door. Little by little, he started caring about everything related to her. And only after truly understanding her did Sebastian finally realize that the reason Jasmine had saved him back then was painfully simple. Her kindness was pure. Even facing someone she barely knew, she had still been willing to use the last of her strength to save him. She was a genuinely good person, the complete opposite of him. That pure kindness illuminated all the darkness and despair hidden inside Sebastian until he almost felt ashamed of himself. Sebastian's life improved more and more after rebirth. Everything went smoothly for him. Eventually, he became the ruler of the Chan family. But Jasmine's life, meanwhile, curved downward like a collapsing parabola. It almost felt as though fate had secretly exchanged their destinies. This time, Jasmine, the dance student, lost her legs. Unable to accept the destruction of her dance career, she gradually fell into despair and became someone completely different from the vibrant girl Sebastian remembered. So he decided to protect her quietly from the shadows. But in the end, Jasmine still left this world. Sebastian attended her funeral. Looking at that tiny little urn, the man who once believed nothing in the world could make him sad suddenly felt overwhelming grief crushing down on his heart. And for the very first time, Sebastian realized things between them could not simply end like this. During the second rebirth, Sebastian became deeply fascinated by Jasmine. Bright, passionate, overflowing with life, she drew his attention again and again. And for the first time, he no longer resisted being captivated by her. He began learning the little things she loved: flowers, dancing, and with every rebirth, Jasmine's circumstances somehow seemed to become worse and worse. Yet even then, the most optimistic and determined person was still always her. Jasmine constantly fought to climb upward. No matter how terrible the cards life dealt her, she always struggled desperately to play the best hand possible. Looking at her, Sebastian was reminded of his former self. They had both lived through hardship, but while she stubbornly reached toward the light, he had once been nothing more than rotting mud sinking deeper into darkness. Forget offering kindness to others. Back then, he could barely save himself. And somewhere along the way, Sebastian finally became certain of his feelings. Then came the final rebirth. This time, Sebastian planned everything far in advance. Like a patient hunter, he carefully laid down an intricate trap, waiting for Jasmine to step closer little by little. But in the end, he still miscalculated. While he was overseas studying abroad, something happened to Jasmine's family. By the time he intervened to help, she had already moved away. It took Sebastian a very long time to find her again, and even longer to wait for the perfect opportunity to appear before her. At that time, Jasmine won Best Actress. Sebastian wasn't surprised in the slightest, because he knew his little girl excelled at everything she did. But by then, Sebastian had only recently suffered the car accident. His legs were injured badly enough that he couldn't make it there in person to watch her receive the award. What a pity! All he could do was sit thousands of miles away and listen as she spoke about all the hardship and struggle she had endured. A dull ache spread through Sebastian's chest. But it didn't matter anymore. This time, they would grow old together. Little girl, sitting in his wheelchair. Sebastian looked at the girl holding her trophy with that dazzling, carefree smile, and silently, deep in his heart, he whispered, "This time, I'm taking you home."